This is a creepy, real ghost story. So a few months ago, I made a video called Scariest Place in Japan where I talked about the legend of Kisaragi Station. This is actually a ghost station that has been spread by Japanese netizens since 2004. Some believe it is located between the stations of Kamitakoro and Hachioji on the Odakyu line in Tokyo, while others claim it lies between Yoyogi and Harajuku stations on the Junior Yamanote line. I even did an investigation myself, trying to find the truth behind this supposed ghost station. But the scary truth is, I may have stumbled upon something even more terrifying than any myth or urban legend. That fateful night, I was walking home from cram school. As the clock struck 10 p.m., I knew I had to hurry up. Otherwise, I would miss my last train home. I ran as fast as my legs could carry me, weaving through the crowds until I saw the familiar sight of Kisaragi Station, or what was supposed to be Kisaragi Station. The entrance was boarded up with rusty iron sheets, and the ticket machine was covered in graffiti. It was clear that this place was abandoned, yet I couldn't help but feel drawn to it. Perhaps it was the mystery surrounding the station, or maybe the thrill of exploring a forbidden place. Whatever the reason, I found myself inexplicably standing before the ticket gate, ready to step inside and uncover the secrets that lay within. My heart pounded in my chest as I pushed open the gates and stepped onto the platform. The air was thick with the smell of damp concrete, and the sound of crickets chirping filled my ears. I walked further down the platform, but there was no end in sight. The tracks seemed to stretch on forever into the darkness beyond. I felt a sudden chill run down my spine, and I could unshake the feeling that I was being watched. The eerie silence was broken only by the sound of my own footsteps echoing on the empty platform. I turned back to go, but to my horror, the ticket gate had vanished. Panic began to set in as I realized I was trapped. Then just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the lights flickered on, revealing a sight that made my blood run cold. In front of me stood a train, but not just any train. It was an old-fashioned one with flickering gas lamps and horse-drawn carriages. People were getting off the train and walking past me without a word. I couldn't believe my eyes. Was this real or was I dreaming? Before I could process what was happening, a man approached me and asked if I needed help. I explained my situation, but he just shook his head and said, "You shouldn't be here." His words sent shivers down my spine. Was this place really haunted? And if so, why was I being warned? As the minutes ticked by, more and more people arrived, all seemingly unaffected by the strange apparition before us. I felt a sense of dread wash over me as I realized I was the only one who could see the ghostly train. I wanted to run, to escape the scene, but my feet felt glued to the platform. I was frozen in fear. Then just as suddenly as it appeared, the train vanished, along with a crowd of eerie passengers. The platform was empty once again, but this time it was silent. The silence was deafening, and I couldn't help but wonder if I was losing my mind. That's when I heard a voice. It seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. "All aboard for Kisaragi Station," it said. Last train of the night. My blood ran cold. Was this a warning or an invitation? The voice echoed around me, growing louder and more insistent. "All aboard for Kisaragi Station." Last train of the night. I felt a sense of urgency, a need to do something, but I didn't know what. Then I saw it. The train reappeared, its ghostly passengers waiting patiently for me. I hesitated for a moment, torn between fear and curiosity. What would happen if I boarded the train? Would I ever return? But the voice wouldn't stop. "All aboard for Kisaragi Station." Last train of the night. And then I knew I had no choice. I had to take this journey, whatever the risks may be. I stepped onto the train and closed the door behind me. The carriage was dimly lit, with flickering gas lamps hanging from the ceiling. The seats were made of worn leather and the floorboards creaked under my weight. I was the only passenger, or so I thought. I could feel eyes on me, watching my every move. I tried to ignore it, but the sensation grew stronger until I could stand it no longer. I turned to look, but there was no one there. The carriage was empty. Just as I began to relax, the train lurched forward, jolting me back to reality. We were moving, but where were we going? I looked out of the window and gasped. We were flying through the darkness, the trees blurring into streaks of green. The wind howled outside, whipping through the carriage and making the windows rattle. I buried my face in my hands, trying to make it stop, but the journey seemed to go on forever. Finally, the train screeched to a halt. The doors opened and a voice echoed through the carriage. Kisaragi Station. Last train of the night. I stumbled out of the train and onto the platform. The station was just as I remembered, deserted and shrouded in darkness, but now there was a sign above the ticket machine. It read, "No trains will run after midnight." Had I missed my connection? Was that why the station was so deserted? Or was there something more sinister at play? I rushed to the ticket machine, my heart pounding in my chest. But as I got closer, I realized the sign wasn't the only thing that had changed. The ticket machine was gone, replaced by a dark, gaping hole in the wall. I stumbled back, my mind racing. Was this supposed to be a secret passage? What was it leading to? Suddenly, I felt a presence behind me and whirled around to face the newcomer. He was tall and thin with long, flowing hair and piercing red eyes. He stared at me intently, and I couldn't help but feel uneasy. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice trembling. He didn't respond. Instead, he took a step closer and reached out a hand towards me. "Don't touch me," I cried, backing away. But it was too late. He grabbed my arm and was pulling me towards the hole in the wall. "Let go!" I screamed, struggling to free myself from his grip. But his hold was like iron. "Let me go!" I cried, but my pleas were ignored. He dragged me towards the darkness, and I knew I was in grave danger. We stumbled out of the tunnel and found ourselves in a dark, narrow corridor. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and decay, and the only light came from a flickering gas lamp at the end of the hall. I struggled against my captor, but he was too strong. He pushed me forward, and I fell to my knees. "Let me go," I begged, my voice echoing through the empty corridor. But he didn't respond. Instead, he disappeared into the darkness, leaving me alone in the eerie silence. I slowly stood up and began to explore The corridor seemed to go on forever, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread wash over me. I walked further and further into the darkness, and as I did, the temperature dropped dramatically. I could feel the icy fingers of fear creeping up my spine. Suddenly, I heard a noise, a faint scratching sound coming from the darkness ahead. I froze in my tracks, my heart pounding in my chest. What was that sound? Was someone out there watching me? I strained to listen, but the only sound I could hear was my own breathing. Determined to find the source of the noise, I pressed on. The scratching sound grew louder, and I could feel my anxiety rising. Then I saw it. A small hole had been made in the wall, just big enough for a person to crawl through. I hesitated for a moment, torn between fear and curiosity. What could be on the other side of this wall? The scratching sound stopped abruptly, and I could feel eyes on me, watching my every move. Taking a deep breath, I decided to investigate. I put my hand on the hole and pushed it open, revealing a dark opening beyond. With shaking hands, I crawled through the hole and found myself in a small, dusty room. The room was bare, except for a single wooden box in the corner. I cautiously approached the box, my heart pounding in my chest. What could be inside it? With trembling hands, I lifted the lid and peered inside. There was nothing there. I was about to slam the box shut when I noticed something. A small piece of paper had been tucked under the lid. I carefully removed the paper and unrolled it, revealing a message written in faded ink. It read, "Beware. The train at midnight. Those who ride it never return." My blood ran cold. Could this be the key to unraveling the mystery of Kisaragi Station? Or was it just another false lead? Determined to find out, I continued my investigation. The message seemed to indicate that there was more to the train than met the eye. Was it possible that those who boarded the train at midnight were trapped within its ghostly realm forever? I pondered these questions as I continued my exploration of the station. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me and whirled around to find the source. To my horror, I saw the man from earlier, standing in the doorway, his eyes fixed on me. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered, his voice raspy and low. I tried to respond, but my voice caught in my throat. Before I could say anything, he lunged towards me, his hands outstretched. "Help me!" I screamed, scrambling backwards. But it was too late. He had grabbed my arm and was dragging me towards the train. "Let go!" I cried, thrashing wildly, but his grip was like iron. He dragged me to the platform and shoved me onto the train. It started like this. At 0:47, the train suddenly stopped. No one got off except me, because I just couldn't take it anymore. So I got off at the station and looked up at the station name. It read, Kisaragi. I'd never heard of this name before. And it was on any train map in this area. And that's when I realized something was wrong. The station was eerily quiet. There was no staff and no voices. All I could hear was the sound of wind chimes coming from somewhere. One by one, the lights flickered and turned off until every single one had gone out. Only the platform sign remained, dimly illuminating the tracks. Then at that moment, my phone flashed with a signal. My hands were shaking so much that it took a while for me to actually make the call. I dialed my boyfriend's number, and when he picked up, I shouted, "The train won't stop." I got off at Kisaragi station, but there's no one here. He paused for a long moment before asking, "What did you say?" Then I repeated myself, "The train isn't stopping. I got off at Kisaragi station, but there's no one here. What should I do?" But then, instead of answering, he asked, "Which station did you say?" I responded, "Kisaragi station." Then his tone changed. "There is no Kisaragi station in Japan. Where are you?" Before I could reply, another voice came on the line. "Stop talking and go home. You don't need to find out what's going on. You've already stepped out of your own world." And just like that, my phone went black. After that, no matter where I went, I couldn't find anyone. The train wasn't listed on any of the maps at the station either. I continued walking down the tracks and eventually found a tunnel. So I started walking through it, thinking I would find a way out soon. But no matter how far I walked, it didn't seem to end. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. I quickened my pace, trying to put as much distance between myself and the sound as possible. But the footsteps kept getting closer and closer. I started running, but my legs felt heavy and sluggish, like they were filled with lead. Suddenly, I tripped and scraped my knee on the concrete floor. Blood started seeping through my ripped jeans, and I knew if I didn't do something quickly, I would bleed to death. But I just couldn't bring myself to stand up. Then those footsteps stopped. I peeked over my shoulder, but it was too dark to see anything. However, I could still hear the person breathing heavily. I tried to run again, but my foot slipped and I fell onto the ground. When I turned around, the person was right in front of me. I screamed, "Who are you?" But he just stared back at me silently. It felt like an eternity. But he finally broke the silence. "Why did you get off the train?" And I responded, "Because I had to. I couldn't take it anymore." "You shouldn't have gotten off," he said quietly. "You weren't supposed to be here." I tried to get up, but he reached out and grabbed my wrist, pulling me back down. "Don't move. You're not allowed to leave." I struggled against him, but he was too strong. "Let me go. I want to get home." "No," he whispered. "You can't go back." As I struggled, I noticed a ring on his finger. It was a wedding band, and then I remembered something. When I first got on the train, there was a couple sitting on the bench across from me. They were really close, like really close. And the guy even had his arm around her shoulder, but she kept leaning away from him. I'm sure it was her who left the train with me. Maybe she wanted to escape from that guy. But why did he get off after me? Why is he here? Those questions echoed in my mind, but he wouldn't let me think properly. He kept saying, "You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here." Then he leaned closer to me, his face inches from mine. His eyes were wild and his breathing was shallow. "Don't you remember me? Do you not recognize me?" And I stared back at him, genuinely confused. "I'm sorry, but I don't know you." His face contorted into a snarl and he pushed me to the ground. As he stood up, he muttered, "I waited so long for you. I thought I'd never get to see you again." And as he turned to walk away, he added, "But now you're mine forever." I was terrified. Was he gonna kill me? I wanted to run away, but I couldn't. Then suddenly he turned back around and squatted down in front of me. He reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair away from my face. His touch sent shivers down my spine. "Don't be afraid," he whispered. "I'll protect you. We'll be together forever." I tried to scream, but no sound came out. He stood up and held out his hand. "Come with me," he said softly. "We have a lot to talk about." I hesitated, but something in his eyes compelled me to take his hand. I couldn't help but notice that his palm was ice cold. He led me deeper into the tunnel, and eventually we came across a door. It was made of a strange material that seemed to absorb all light. As I stared at it, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. "Where are we?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Here," he replied. "You'll be safe." He placed his hand on the door, and it slid open with a squeaking sound. On the other side, I could feel a warm breeze, almost as if it was another world. "Are you ready to come home, he asked, his eyes shining with an eerie glow. I hesitated, torn between the fear that gripped me and the curiosity that burned within me. And then, without another word, he stepped through the door. Wow, this story gets more disturbing as it goes on. It is amazing how the atmosphere shifts from a simple train ride to this terrifying journey into the unknown. The encounter with the mysterious man is unsettling, but the ending leaves us with so many unanswered questions. In Tokyo's Shinjuku, there's a truck without a license plate. Hasumi continued on. Seeing a truck stop, she approached cautiously and asked the driver, "Where are we going?" The driver didn't respond. He just stared straight ahead and kept driving. But then he let her in, and when she looked over, the man turned around. She could tell that the man had no eyes. All she could see was a black hole where his eyes should be. Startled, she got out of the truck and ran away. Then she looked back to see the truck disappear into the darkness. Where did he take everyone? She wondered. So then she decided to look up the address of the truck company. But every time she looked, the address was different. Hasumi never posted again on the forum. That night, 2Chainz users followed all of Hasumi's messages, but Hasumi disappeared. They couldn't find anyone named Hasumi. No body, no trace. Was she taken by the truck? What happened to her? The case remains unsolved. And now, our next story. Our next story begins with a hiker walking past an old railway track near Shi. It was abandoned with weeds growing between the tracks. But then he spotted something strange on an old station sign inside the tracks. It was an old flip phone. It must have fallen down from above. He was curious, so he picked it up. As he looked closer, he realized there was a tiny note written on the back cover. It said, "If anyone finds this phone, please don't get off the train." He thought, what does that mean? Then he opened the phone to see there was only one message. It said, "I've been lost here forever." He closed the phone slowly. Then, on the inside cover, he read the name who's on the back. He noticed a name and number. It said, "To call me, dial *67. This is an emergency phone." Curiosity got the better of him, so he dialed the number, but it didn't connect. He tried again, but it still didn't work. Strange. Could it be some kind of prank? Or maybe the line was dead because it was an old phone. He continued on his hike, but soon came across another sign. It said, "Welcome to Kisaragi Station." Kisaragi. The name rang a bell. He remembered reading about it before. There was an urban legend about a mysterious train stop that only appeared at midnight. Some say it only appears for those who have died and have unfinished business. When they ride the train, they're sent to kill, and those who step foot on the platform are never seen again. Some say to transfer station, for those whose souls have yet to move on. Others say it's the last stop, before moving on to the afterlife. Many people have reported seeing it, but nobody knows exactly where it is or how to get there. Even today, there are many reports of strange occurrences on that train line. People hear voices calling their names. They feel a cold hand on theirs. They even see ghosts standing right in front of them. The hiker felt goosebumps on his arms. Maybe the phone wasn't just some prank. He turned back to the phone store and pulled out his own phone. He wanted to check if there was anything on it, like a map showing the location of Kisaragi Station. But when he opened it, he saw a text that said, "Do you want to know the coordinates of Kisaragi Station?" Say yes. He responded, yes. The phone vibrated. Do you trust me? Yes. Then close your eyes and walk forward 10 steps. He closed his eyes and walked 10 steps. The phone vibrated again. Turn left. He turned left and took 7 more steps. The phone vibrated again. He opened his eyes and saw he was standing right in front of the old station. It was the same station from the sign earlier. Wow, he whispered, amazed by the technology. Suddenly, he heard a voice behind him. Hey, are you playing hide and seek? He turned around to see a young girl looking at him. She had long flowing hair and was wearing a white dress. She smiled innocently. Then the girl spoke again. Are you looking for this? She held up his phone. Here you go. He reached for his phone, but she moved it away. Why aren't you taking it? She tilted her head in confusion. I don't understand, he hesitantly asked. Are you a ghost? The girl shook her head. I'm a spirit. Then she pointed to the phone. Take it. You need it. She started to fade away. Wait, he called after her. What's your name? She stopped and looked back at him. It's me, she said, whispering his name. Then she disappeared. He quickly picked up the phone. As he looked closer, he saw a message that said, meet me at the end of the line. I'll show you the way home. His heart pounding, he looked at the tracks. They went deep into the darkness. He was about to step onto the tracks when suddenly a train whistle blew. He looked up to see a train barreling toward him. He quickly stepped aside as it passed by. Then he heard a voice saying, too late. He looked up to see the girl from before. I warned you, she said. Don't blame me for what happens next. She turned and boarded the train. Then he heard a voice behind him. You shouldn't have come here. He turned around, but there was no one there. The train blew its whistle again. This time, it was louder than before. He watched as the train disappeared into the darkness. Then he noticed something strange. The train had 2 sets of tracks. One was the tracks he had seen earlier. The other was brand new. As he continued on, he noticed more and more trains passing by. They were coming and going with bright headlights. He was scared, but also curious. Where did these trains lead? He felt like he was being watched, like something was following him. Then he heard a voice saying, I'm here. He turned around, but there was nothing there. Suddenly, he felt a cold hand on his shoulder. He screamed and fell backwards. As he looked up, he saw the girl from before standing over him. Let's go, she said, extending her hand. Go where? He reached for her hand. Then he heard a voice saying, you shouldn't go with her. He pulled his hand away and turned around, but there was no one there. The girl stared at him, confused. Then she disappeared. As the platform began to fade away, he knew he had to make a choice. Should he follow the girl or listen to the voice? He thought about Asumi and the truck driver. What would happen if he boarded the train? Would he be stuck in Kisaragi forever? He looked back at the forest. Maybe it was safer there. At least there weren't any trains. As he turned to leave, he heard a voice saying, it's too late. He turned around and saw the girl standing in front of him. It's all right, she said. Just board the train. He hesitated, then slowly walked towards the train. As he boarded, the doors closed behind him. He looked back, but the girl had disappeared. He noticed that there was only one seat in front of him. It was empty. Slowly, he began to fade away. He woke up with a start. It was dark, musty, and he could hear water dripping nearby. He realized he was inside a cave. He could see an opening up ahead, so he walked towards it. As he approached, he saw light coming from the other side. When he finally emerged, he realized he was at the top of a mountain. He could see the tracks winding through the trees below him. He recognized the area. It was the same trail he had hiked earlier, but then he noticed something strange. The sky was filled with trains. There were hundreds of them, all flying through the air. Then he heard a voice saying, welcome to Kisaragi Station, the station that doesn't exist. The voice echoed through the mountains, so then it hit him. He understood what was happening. Those who step foot on the platform of Kisaragi Station are never seen again because they become the new Kisaragi Station. Their bodies and souls remain there forever, while their loved ones search for them in the real world. He realized that's why the girl had told him to bring his phone. She needed him to replace her. He realized he wasn't in the afterlife. He was being tested. If he accepted the girl's offer, he would be trapped there forever. He had to make a choice. Would he save himself or sacrifice for the girl? What do you think he'll choose?